Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today we're going to be taking a look at every single NHL team and picking one player they'll trade this offseason. Now, if we've learned anything since the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Cup, it's that this NHL offseason is setting up to be absolutely insane, especially in the trade front where there's a lot of great players that could be moved. But what do I see as the biggest trades we could see this offseason, and what's my one player from every team that I think will be moved this year? Watch till the end for all my picks and predictions, and of course, hit that big red subscribe button for more videos just like this one. And now getting us started with the first team on the list, the Anaheim Ducks. And I think the one player they will trade this offseason is Josh Manson. Now, to be fair, I really don't see the Ducks making too many big moves, at least trade-wise. Maybe they have some stuff in free agency, but I really don't see their team being too much different. But I think Josh Manson will be a guy that will be gone this offseason. He has 2 more years on his contract starting next year, and I feel like that's a guy that's relatively low at just over $4 million. Solid player, had a little bit of a rough year, but I think can rebound quite well. And for a team that's in need of a 4th, maybe 3rd defenseman, especially on defense, I think he'd be a pretty good fit. Then going on to the Arizona Coyotes, we have a lot of different options here, but it's Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He could be traded as soon as this week, and we've already heard a lot of negotiations, both Vancouver and Boston as the main teams there, and I think it's just an inevitability at this point. They want to get rid of that contract as soon as possible because a lot of the bonuses come up this next season. So if they're going to trade OEL, it's probably going to happen this offseason and very shortly as well. Then going on to the Boston Bruins, I see Jake DeBrusk being the guy. Now, if we have OEL going to Boston, Jake DeBrusk is likely one of the big pieces back. RFA this season, and he's a guy that they might have some trouble re-signing, especially if they bring on a contract like OEL. So I think DeBrusk is a guy that's kind of had a little bit of an off year. I think is a guy that Boston should keep, but if it is an OEL trade, you'll likely see him going back too. Then going to the Buffalo Sabres, I have them going with Lawrence Pellew. RFA this season, went back to Sweden, and I really don't see him being a fit in Buffalo anymore, and I really don't see him playing with them at all anyways. I think his rights will be acquired by somebody else as an RFA. I think Buffalo will trade that, and I just think they'll call it done there. I did have Colin Miller originally like a couple of weeks back, but I think they will want to keep most of that defense intact. Then going on to the Calgary Flames, going to a team that doesn't really want to keep that defense intact too much. I have Noah Hanifin, a guy who's locked up for a super long time. Personally, I think defensively had one of his worst years of his career. He, to me, is kind of a little bit of a lost cause, but I still think has potential. Definitely not worth that contract, and probably not worth it if you're trading for him, what you're going to give back, but he does have potential. And I think for the Calgary Flames, they'll want to get as much as humanly possible for him. Now, I somehow forgot to mention that, yes, I do actually have a desk now in the setup. Now, I really don't have it actually set up at all. I have my new monitor there. Hopefully, I'll have a PC coming, but just know that this at least this part, it's probably going to change a little bit in the setup, but it's not nearly as complete, so don't worry about it too much. But we're now going to go to the Carolina Hurricanes, and my pick will be Peter Mrazek. Now, I could see them trading either or James Reimer or Mrazek. I don't see them trading both, but I do see them getting a big-time starter, whether that be in free agency or trade. I think Darcy Kemper's a pretty good fit. Then going on to the Chicago Blackhawks, I kind of wrestled around them trading Brandon Saad or Dylan Strome, but I see Brandon Saad being the pick because I think they'll want to keep Dylan Strome. Even though I'm not sure if Dylan Strome will be the long-term second-line center fit, kind of had a really inconsistent year of Chicago this year, I feel like Brandon Saad is a guy that, even though he's a great player, he has $6 million on his deal, and even though it's only for 1 more year, Chicago really needs the cap space, especially if they want to keep even Corey Crawford, let alone Dylan Strome or Dominic Kubalik. So I feel like Saad is the main piece, has most of that cap hit. I could also see maybe Calvin DeHaan, but I think Saad is the most cap hit. That makes the most sense. Then going on to the Colorado Avalanche, I have them trading Philip Grubauer. Now I see them getting rid of one of their 2 goaltenders in Grubauer or Franco, but or Francouz. I see when it comes to Grubauer, him just having more value on the market. I think he's proven more as a goaltender thus far. Does have more cap hit, but is only signed for one more season, so a team could bring him on as a short-term option. I think he can bring in some pretty good assets, and they'll maybe go for Henrik Lundqvist or somebody as their starter in free agency. Then going on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I have them trading Josh Anderson. Now, I originally had them maybe trading Cam Atkinson, but it's been reported that Columbus wants to add major skill, and I'm not sure why you trade Atkinson if you're trying to do that. With Josh Anderson, though, he had a pretty bad year, all things considered, dealt with some big injuries, but I still think he has pretty major value on the market as a guy that can bring that bottom six grinder role while also scoring quite a bit of goals when he is healthy and good to go. I feel like with Columbus, that's a spot they can also open up. He's an RFA, so they might want to get rid of him. There's not too many good options, though, in Columbus, as I see them being a team that could add some major pieces. Then going on to the Dallas Stars, my favorite team, I see it being Andrew Cogliano. He has over $3 million on his cap hit for one more season. That's a player that is just an obvious fit to leave. Now, the only problem would be who would take that contract, even at 3.4, and even though even if it is just for one more season, that is quite a bit of money. So I'm not sure what Dallas would be able to get back for him, but that cap might be able to open up the possibility of Hudobin coming back already on top of the Rupe and Guriano contracts. And if you can get all three of those guys back while trading Cogliano, it's 100% worth it. Then going on to the Detroit Red Wings, and they really have nobody to trade, so I don't know really who to pick. For me, it was Valtteri Filppula, and I feel like he's a player that still is pretty solid, kind of wasting away on Detroit right now. I would like to see him get a cup someday, so I just see him as a trade candidate, but to be honest, there's really not that much on Detroit right now. Then going on to the Edmonton Oilers, a little bit of a different story trade-wise, as they're also sort of in the OEL sweepstakes. To me, Chris Russell is an obvious fit. I think either Chris Russell or Larsson, or potentially even both, might be gone from the Oilers, but Chris Russell I think makes more sense as a trade option. He only has one more year left in his deal, just over $4 million, and that's a player that would be a little bit easier, I think, to get rid of and actually get some value back. I'm not sure what Edmonton would get in a trade like that, but I think that opens up their defense also to guys like Caleb Jones, who have been pretty impressive thus far. Then going on to the Florida Panthers, I have Keith Yandle on the defensive side, and for me, Keith Yandle is going to be a super fascinating player to watch this offseason. I think he has some pretty big value as an offensive D-man, but he does have a pretty long and big contract, so I'm not sure what his value might be, but on paper, solid offensive D-man will start to regress, I think, in the next couple of years. I think for the Florida Panthers, that's some cap space they can definitely use, and hey, maybe they're even able to bring in a defenseman because of that can play a lot more defense than Keith Yandle can. Then going on to the LA Kings, and just like Detroit, there really isn't too much. I would have said Jonathan Quick, but again, he has like 3 more years left on his contract, which in today's world is a lot harder to get rid of. To me, Jeff Carter makes some sense. He has 2 more years left, I think just over $5 million, and even though he has regressed quite a bit, that is a player that, when healthy, I think can provide some good value for any team, and especially for a contender, that experience could be really helpful. Again, the problem is the cap hit, and it's not just a 1-year deal, it's a 2-year deal, so I'm not sure where the fit would be, but I think for the LA Kings, they can still get some value back for that, and I think a trade could happen. Then going on to the Minnesota Wild, I have Devin Dubnyk. Now, originally, it was reported that he would get bought out, but that hasn't happened yet, and it seems like with Minnesota, they're trying to trade that contract, which is obviously, if you can, would be the way to go. He's making just over $4 million. Personally, over the past couple of seasons, to me, he's been one of the worst starters in the NHL, though he's kind of had his job taken away from Stalock, or by Stalock. I feel like with Dubnyk, though, if you can get that contract off the books, that would be hugely important for Minnesota's cap space situation, and I think that's the route they're going to try to take. They might have to retain some salary, but it might be better than a buyout when it's all said and done. Then going on to the Montreal Canadiens, another fascinating team in the grand scheme of things, and I think Philip Deneau will be the guy that gets traded. We heard that Max Domi a month back would be the guy, and then it seemed like that wasn't going to happen, and then he might actually re-sign with the Montreal Canadiens sooner or later, and I feel like Philip Deneau is the odd one out there. It seems like they still want to have Suzuki and Kotkaniemi as the first 2 centers, and if you already have Domi back, it really doesn't leave too much room for Philip Deneau. Personally, if I'm Montreal, there's no way I'm trading Deneau, especially in the prime of his career, but hey, it's Marc Bergevin. He do what he wants. I'm sorry. And now going on to the Nashville Predators, and it's been reported by TSN that Johansson and Duchesne might be in play in the trade block, but I think the more likely option for the Preds this offseason is Pekka Rinne. And I've basically been saying his name since we've been discussing trades this offseason. I think Pekka Rinne is a perfect candidate for the Preds to be traded. I think he has one more year left on his deal, around $5 million. That's a player that can bring some big-time experience and could maybe be a starter somewhere else. It's not going to happen, but Nashville might be able to get something back. You know, I don't know how he's going to do it, but David Poyle, you madman, just make it happen. I would love to see it. Then going on to the New Jersey Devils, I have Miles Wood. Now, he makes, I think, around 2.3 for the next 2 seasons. Wood is a guy that's just not worth that contract at all. And really for New Jersey, I'm not sure if they make any trades with their current roster. I just thought Miles Wood is a guy that was a little bit overpaid, could use a change of scenery, and I'm not sure if New Jersey will be the team to actually make him rebound to a player that he actually can be. Then going on to the New York Islanders, I have Nick Leddy. Now, there's a couple of options here. The Islanders are mostly screwed with cap space, but if they do trade Nick Leddy, it does get quite a bit better. He makes $5.5 million, I think, for the next 2 seasons. And Leddy's a decent offensive defenseman. I thought looked pretty great during the playoffs, but I feel like with the Islanders, you're going to have to make some pretty big casualties, whether that's like a guy like Nick Leddy or maybe that's Jordan Eberle. I think there will be a couple big changes to that Islanders team just because they kind of have to. To me, Nick Leddy's the guy that can provide the most value as a defenseman there, but I think the Islanders are a pretty open book. Then going on to the New York Rangers. Now, I would have said Mark Stahl, but we already had the Mark Stahl trade. To me, Brendan Smith also makes quite a bit of sense. I think he's making around 4.3 for the next year. Really, there's not really too many guys on that team right now that I actually see being traded. Maybe it's one of the RFAs in D'Angelo or Strome, but I kind of see them both being re-signed by New York. We'll see what happens. They have a ton of cap space, so I don't even think they need to trade Brendan Smith, but that team's going to be super interesting too. Then going on to the Ottawa Senators, I have Artem Anisimov. Now, just like the Red Wings and the Kings, it's super hard to see who they're actually going to trade because Artem Anisimov is like one of the 3 forwards that are actually signed for the next season. I think it's Brady Tkachuk, Artem Anisimov, and someone else. I don't even know. Or, oh, it's Colin White. There we go. Colin White. Let's go. So, I don't even know what's going to happen with Anisimov. I really can't right now. Then going on to the Philadelphia Flyers, the team that actually will trade somebody. That is great. I have Shane Gostisbehere. Now, it's also been rumored a lot that the Flyers are heavily trying to trade Ghost, and it makes a lot of sense. He makes quite a bit, I think, for the next 3 years, I think around 4.3. Definitely not that worth that contract right now, but that's a player that could use a change of scenery. I still think has potential as a great offensive D-man, but who knows? That's kind of the risk you're taking, just like an OEL in that sense. So, I don't know if there's too much value in the market for a Gostisbehere, but for the Flyers to get that cap hit off the books would be miraculous. Then going on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, I have one of the 2 goaltenders, and that one hopefully will be Matt Murray. I swear, JR, if you freaking trade just Tristan Jarry, I'm going to never mind. With Matt Murray, I think he's the obvious candidate to trade. Both are RFAs, but I think Murray might have more value on the market right now as a guy who's won those 2 cups. The problem is the goaltending market is just flooded, and I think that's why Murray hasn't been traded yet, but I think the Penguins can get something done, and I think Murray will be that guy. And now going on to the San Jose Sharks, really there's not that many options. Maybe in the forward group they get rid of Sorensen, but I think Marc-Edouard Vlasic is the choice. He makes a ton of money for a ton of years, and if San Jose is able to get that contract off the books, especially during all of this, that would be an absolute miracle. But I do still think in the NHL circles, Vlasic does still hold some value. People still think he's 2016 Vlasic, and for the San Jose Sharks, that would be really good, really amazing. So I don't know, maybe a GM. I mean, Jim Benning is already pretty dumb to go after OEL and trade a few big assets if it happens. I mean, who knows what Vlasic could get back. So I don't even know if he'll be traded, but if that's a player they can get off the books, I would pull the trigger 100%. Then going on to the St. Louis Blues, they have quite a few interesting options. I think it's between Steen and Tyler Bozak. Right now, I'm going to go Tyler Bozak. He's 34 years old, makes $4 million, I'm pretty sure, for the next year. And that's a contract that could totally be movable. And a player that I think a lot of teams would like to have as a third-line center. It's worked out pretty well for the St. Louis Blues, and that's a contract that they would want to get off the books to bring in some cap space. And I could see a lot of teams going after that too. Then going on to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're a team that could make some big moves this offseason right after winning the Stanley Cup. The one that I think will be moved is Alex Killorn. I was going to say Tyler Johnson, but he has a full no-trade clause, whereas with Alex Killorn, I think it's 15 no-team list or no-trade list. So I feel like Killorn is a lot more movable in that respect, and I think a lot more movable in the contract. I think he makes around $4 million, whereas Tyler Johnson makes $5 million. So I think it'll be more likely to trade Killorn. Also, he did have a lot of that playoff experience as well. I think either of those two guys will be traded, but Tampa Bay is likely going to make some big moves to try to keep both Strelly and Sergachev too. Then going on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's been rumored that Frederik Andersen might be the guy there, but it doesn't seem like a trade could be happening anytime soon. And again, with that flooded goalie market, it seems a lot harder these days to actually get correct value back. And I feel like Alex Kerfoot just makes a lot more sense for the Leafs to trade. He has his contract for 3 more seasons at just over $3 million, and that's a lot to pay a guy that's basically on your third line permanently. To me, I feel like the Leafs could definitely get rid of that contract. He could provide some good value in a top 6 somewhere else, and that is absolutely needed cap space that they could use this offseason too. Then going on to the Vancouver Canucks, to me the guy is Brandon Sutter. Just like Killorn, he has, I'm pretty sure, like a 15 no trade movement clause thing, or movement clause things, just like Louis Eriksson. But I think Brandon Sutter is more movable. He, I think, makes like $1.2 million less than Louis Eriksson, and it's just for this next season. So I feel like for Sutter, that's a guy that did play decently in the regular season for the Canucks as well. Could still provide some value on an NHL team, and I think a lot of teams could go after that and maybe get a pick back as well in that trade. Then going on to the Vegas Golden Knights, I have Marc-Andre Fleury. To me, it just makes too much sense to trade Fleury, even though he said he wants to save the Vegas Golden Knights, which obviously he'll say. I'm not too surprised. I think Fleury just makes way too much sense, especially if they want to go after a big fish like an Alex Pietrangelo. If you want that cap space, Marc-Andre Fleury is the guy to trade. $7 million, you can get that contract off the books, make Robin Lehner the starter, maybe get a backup, maybe get Alex Pietrangelo on that defense. There's a lot more options that Vegas has if they get rid of Fleury, and to me, that would be the obvious pick with Robin Lehner hopefully being the starter of the future. Then going on to the Washington Capitals, it's been rumored that they want to make quite a few moves as well. Maybe one to that big core. They want to keep some of their depth players like Brendan Dillon and maybe make a splash in free agency. The guy that I see making the most sense for the Caps is TJ Oshie. He has like a deal for like 4 more seasons. He's like 33 years old. He's not getting any younger. And to me, TJ Oshie is the perfect guy that still has quite a bit of value right now and still has quite a bit of play left of him, but also this is the perfect time to trade him because, again, he's not going to be getting any better. It's going to be a weird time to trade that contract, but I think the Caps can give it up, and he's still a top 6 forward in all respect. And I think that's a player that could still get a lot of value on the market too. Then going on to the Winnipeg Jets and Patrik Laine. You know, if the Jets want to get a 2C or a left defenseman or just any holes they want to fill, I see Patrik Laine being the guy they trade. Now, personally, if you're going to trade a guy for one of those two things, this might be a hot take, but Blake Wheeler should probably be that guy. He is a lot older. He's going more towards the stone age of his career, and I feel like that's a guy that will start regressing as soon as this next upcoming season. To me, that's the guy you trade for getting a second line center and another defenseman back. Patrik Laine could get more on the market, but Patrik Laine is going to be better for a lot more time, a lot longer as well. And Blake Wheeler's the guy also keeping Patrik Laine from playing with Mark Scheifele, which is what they want to have happen. So I feel like with Winnipeg, I would trade Blake Wheeler, but I think Patrik Laine will be the guy they go after. I think they want to fill those holes at the second line center. They want to fill those holes on defense. And if you're going to get anybody, or you're going to give anybody to get the holes fixed, Patrik Laine is probably the guy that gets you the most. Again, I wouldn't trade him, but I think Winnipeg does. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment down below what you agree and disagree with. Who do you see your favorite team trading for this off-season? Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get it out there. Click this card right here to watch all of my rankings videos right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. I love y'all. I'll see you guys next video or stream. Goodbye.